This is Bill Tucker for Newsmax Money TV. We're joined now by economist Peter Morici. Peter works with the Smith School of Business down at the University of Maryland. Peter, glad to have you with us today.
Nice to be with you.
Let's start. This week, the Senate is going to vote on Yellen. It's expected she'll pass out of committee without any controversy and pass in the Senate as well. The key reason why she's expected to get the job is that she's basically promised to continue the easy money policies of Ben Bernanke. Are we flirting with economic danger here by continuing a policy that a lot of people would say is doomed for nothing but failure? Maybe not now, but in a couple of years from now?
Well, certainly this easy money policy has already been creating asset inflation, even though it hasn't been pushing up consumer prices in areas like agricultural land, housing prices in big cities, and some people say stocks. And the longer this goes on, the tougher it'll be to end it, especially, developing countries have become accustomed to low interest rates, say in Latin America, and also in South Europe. And sooner or later, this has to come to an end if we're not going to have CPI inflation. And when it does, higher interest rates are going to affect all those markets for those bonds, that land, the stocks, and what have you.
Well, there are a lot of people that don't want this to come to an end, Peter, including Europe. The OECD today issued a policy statement commenting on the biggest danger to the world economy, and it's us, saying our monetary policies are the biggest threat. Please explain that one to me.
Well, foreign governments have become accustomed to cheap money. The OECD is really a European club where the Americans get to participate. It's essentially the industrialized countries plus Japan, Korea, and Mexico. And as a consequence, they would like us to continue these easy money policies and continue to do things that are very deleterious to our economy. Easy money papers over a lot of the structural problems that are keeping America from growing. Things like overzealous regulation, the damage being brought down on the economy by Obamacare, the huge trade deficit with China, which Barack Obama has promised to fix, but he hasn't done much about. And also the fact that we don't drill for oil. All these things are why we have 2% growth instead of the 5% growth Ronald Reagan had over the first 5 years of his recovery.
Yeah, what cracks me up in all of this is that we're talking about monetary policy, which couldn't, frankly, be more boring, and we're not talking about jobs. The jobs pretty much cure everything, don't they?
Yeah, and the way to do that is to get the economy growing. So instead of creating jobs, they're printing money. The terrible level of unemployment in the United States, which is not adequately reflected in the unemployment rate, deeply concerns someone like Janet Yellen. But she believes the kinds of policies that Barack Obama is pursuing on the fiscal side, all these entitlements and government spending are great things. I mean, Dr. Yellen and her husband are the economist profession's answer to Mrs. Pelosi and her husband. I mean, they are the radical left of the economics profession, and that's who he wants there. And he is president of the United States, so that's what he's going to get.
But what we've gotten so far hasn't been good. You've got this easy money policy, which could be corrosive and detrimental eventually. And you've got an Obamacare policy that is blowing up and seemingly coming undone every single day. What are we going to do, Peter, in terms of Obamacare and the threat it poses to the budget and to the people who want health care?
Well, the U.S. healthcare system was broken before Obamacare, and this just makes it worse. We spend 50% more than the Europeans do on healthcare, and the Germans, who have a kind of system Mr. Obama wants, President Obama wants, one where there are private providers but we're compelled to buy insurance. But they built that gradually over time. It wasn't the moonshot all at once. This is like so many situations. Mr. Obama tried to write a law with Nancy Pelosi that would restructure the entire U.S. healthcare system, which is the size of the entire economy of France, overnight. The lessons of history are replete with failures when people try to do these kinds of things. Among them, Romania, Bulgaria, Poland, Latvia, Lithuania, and all the other countries of Eastern Europe, that were destroyed by this kind of planning. It is possible to evolve to a German system, but the Republicans are going to have to pitch in too. The Germans rely heavily on regulating prices where markets don't work very well, right. AKA drugs.
Well, the Republicans just seem intent on stripping away Obamacare. It seems to be their main mission. They're going to be successful with that. Is that a bad approach strategically for the Republicans?
Well, it surely is a bad approach politically, because unless Obamacare dysfunctions much further, it's not going to go away. They're not going to be able to get a bill through the Senate, which means they make no progress at all. They have a strategic opening here to try to limit the damage created by Obamacare, because Obama would now have to negotiate. The president is up against the wall. Things get better every day. I mean, we are now 11 days out from the end of the month, from November 30th. All I can say is going to be one heck of an 11 days if the website's going to work on November 30th. I mean, they're going to have miraculous fixes in there, and that's just not going to happen. The more we learn about that website, which is so central and critical to these reforms, the more we learned it was botched by inept management, by political decisions, and just by good old-fashioned hubris. The whole notion that you could create markets in each of 3,000 counties across the United States and do that with a single set of regulations and on a single website on a single day, and not have the healthcare companies, the insurance companies, for example, monopolize markets. For example, if you look at Denver, you drive 30, 50 miles from Denver, and all of a sudden health insurance rates double. Why? There's only one or two providers in those counties, unlike Denver where there's competition. Basically, the health insurance companies were given a golden opportunity by conscious parallelism, as we used to call it, about airline rates, to essentially cartelize the health insurance market, and they've done just that with government approval. This is remarkable. I mean, the U.S. Justice Department and the Federal Trade Commission has spent the last century trying to break up monopolies, and there's Mr. Obama putting them together very nicely. This is, it's just the sorceress apprentice.
Well, there are so many things about this that boggle my mind and absolutely infuriate me. It's not my plan. I don't like the plan. It's their plan, but they were in charge of implementing it, and I can't believe that this is theirs, and they did such a stupendously bad job at implementing a plan. There are people who say it is just so bad, Peter. It was intentional. It was meant to drive us to a single-payer system. It was meant to do something other than what it does because it's just been executed so badly. I don't know. Is that where we're going with this? Was this intentional, or is this just bumbling incompetence?
Well, there's really two questions here that are conflated. One, could this take us to a single-payer system? You bet it could. Simply because that may be the only way we can give people affordable health care. There's the only way we may be able to reform. Because going back to what we had before, as we're learning, saying, well, you folks can offer the old policies. Those policies are gone. Those markets are destroyed. They were broken up by the Fire Acts of Mrs. Sebelius. So we can't go back to what we had before. But do I think it was intentional? I don't think these guys are that malevolent. I think that's right-wing conspiracy theory.
It's just pure, straight-up incompetence.
Yeah, that's really all it is. This is what happens when you elect somebody who's done nothing but run for office most of his life. He's never run anything else.
Right.
I mean, what you have here is a president that spends most of his time campaigning. For example, we had the big blow-up today about perhaps during the election months, the labor statistics, the jobs data being cooked. Now, whether that amounted to anything or not, I can't say just yet. We don't have enough information.
Right.
But how will Mr. Obama respond to a scandal? He'll get on an airplane, fly to the Midwest, have somebody assemble an audience of college students where he'll throw out verbose rhetoric. And he'll get lots of cheers that'll be on the evening news. He'll put on another campaign instead of staying in Washington like Lyndon Johnson did. And as Governor Christie points out, establishing relationships with people on both sides so he could govern reasonably. He basically views with disdain even the Democrats. I mean, the guy doesn't socialize with them. He doesn't spend any time with them. He views them as some inferior species. Republicans, an inferior species that should be exterminated. He's lost all credibility. He hasn't been honest with them.
Yeah.
I mean, immigration reform? Ha! Would you trust this guy to keep his word about defending the border after the IRS scandal, after the AP scandal, after the cooking of the books on health care, and on and on and on? The man simply can't be trusted.
And Peter, we are going to end it on that. You get the last word. Thank you so much for joining us, economist Peter Morici of the Smith School of Business at the University of Maryland. Thanks, Peter. I'm Bill Tucker for Newsmax Money TV.